I'm so happy when things like this happen. This is obviously during a multi-video shoot that Erik and I did. I do a lot of fun things with the microphone. Not like that. Like jokes, and I feel like the microphone's on, and that's what I'm talking into. And then I learned after we were done that it was the computer audio. So just ignore my stupidity with my rats. I'm trying to make a video. Anyways, yeah, so just enjoy. But just know that the audio is going to be from the computer and not from the mic that it looks like I'm doing.
We're on 2007. Who decided that? Who decided that we would be in 2007 years? Jesus? Jesus? Is that who decided it? That's nuts. Maybe he should check his watch, because there's probably a couple other billion years that have passed on this earth. Are we truly in 2007? Hi, welcome to the Game of the Year cast.
You know, from what I can remember, there is a shared game for 2007 that what you just said, sounds like it comes from said game.
In a sense.
In a sense.
We have a long discussion today, I will tell you that. Today is going to be a very long discussion. One game will be a long discussion between us. The other game, well, it's Brian's game.
Yes.
But let's first talk about my game of the year for this year. My runner up first, yeah. But funny enough, the runner up is also a game that we love. 2007 was a great fucking year.
Yes.
We openly admit that.
Yes. Dude, I have the list already pulled up, and just going through it, I'm like,
it wasn't hard to choose, but also like it just happened to be a year where just fucking so many great games came out. That doesn't happen very.
No, and I agree with you. It wasn't a difficult year. It was just more of a, you go to Google it, you see your game, but then you look around and go, holy shit, what a year.
Mm-hmm. For me, the losing battle for my game of the year, which is funny enough because I have it tattooed on me, but it's Mass Effect. The first Mass Effect. Golly, BioWare saying, hey, we want to make our own Star Wars. And it worked. Sure, the combat wasn't 100% the best, and they were still figuring things out, but my God, Mass Effect just blew up, made BioWare a household name, and they went on from there to make some even greater games and also to sell their souls to EA. Let's talk about games that changed our lives. For me, my game of the year for 2007 is something that might be a lot of people's game of the years.
Might be a lot of people's favorite game of all time, too.
There's a lot of people that think that this is their favorite game of all time, too. I know someone specifically that like is in love with this game and this series because it just speaks to them. It's a game that makes you think. It's a game that has so many different like interesting characters, an interesting world. You're just like, this makes sense. It works, and the way that the world fell apart. It's BioShock.
So I will say before Erik continues, just like with Resident Evil 4, this is my runner-up. So I just wanted to put that out there now, because then I thought it's still on you. Like, I'm not even being funny right now. This is still your game of the year. You talk. I just want to put it out there so then once you're kind of finishing up, I can interject stuff, because then I don't have to like do a whole, what's my runner-up? So yes, my runner-up is BioShock, and I'm very excited to discuss a little bit with you.
Yeah. So BioShock was made by Irrational Games, studio head Ken Levine.
Who is probably, like, I don't know if we ended up talking about this on video or not, but we talk about, like, how in movies there's those people, right? Like Scorsese, Nolan, Tarantino. Video games don't really have that, but Ken Levine is kind of one of the few people that is, like, on that pedestal of, like, those people that
he helped make like System Shock and System Shock 2, and then he was like, okay, I'm gonna run my own studio, and that turned into BioShock, which was a spiritual successor to the System Shock series, because they could never get like a System Shock 3 off the ground. They we barely can get this System Shock 2 remake off the ground for
true.
what fucking reason. But System Shock was going nowhere. So Ken Levine took the reins to make his own interesting world, talking about the politics of the world, religion, and making a utopia under the sea. And my God, did he. Rapture is one of the most interesting game worlds ever. The citizens of it, the deterioration of the world, the war between Atlas and Ryan. Andrew Ryan being this really interesting figurehead behind Rapture. Just, following through, trying to go through these different areas. I mean, you start off in that freaking pod at this lighthouse. Of course, that lighthouse is being that beacon of, where's this lighthouse doing in the middle of the ocean at this plane crash I just had? I guess I'll go investigate because I got nothing else, going
I'm just out here in the water.
I'll just live in the water for the rest of my life. Like, let's just decide, going into the bathysphere and then getting that beautiful introduction of Andrew Ryan being like, the sweat on your brow, baby. Is it worth it? The communists are wrong. The Americans are wrong. So I'm making a new world. And, the logistics of how the city underwater should work, especially in that time frame,
doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't fucking matter, You're in a city underwater, and there it is from there.
Brilliant opening. One of my favorite openings in a video game of all time. It's incredible.
It's the only time that you hear your main character Jack speak, and that's all you get from it. And then you don't think anything of it, which I love. The fact that it's just like, okay, your character says something, and then you're just a vessel and you're trying to escape this. That's their whole point. You're just trying to get through. You don't think anything else about yourself throughout the entire game. And that's one of the points behind it, which I like is fascinating. That, you don't think you matter, but in all reality, the plot is all around you, which is very interesting. You definitely meet some interesting characters along the way, of course. Your main homie the entire game is Atlas, and it's just this this Irish boy who wants to talk to you. He's got no ulterior motives. He just wants to get his family out of Rapture. He tells you about how the world went to shit with like the introduction of plasmids and people just wanting the drugs. And so the way that I can't remember what exactly it was called, that the drugs that people are wanting from.
I don't remember either.
But of course, to get those drugs, you have to, splice it out of the human body, which is why the bad guys in the game are called splicers, because they're the ones that are injecting themselves with these drugs to, feed their addictions and things like that. And of course, to get splice with it. Oh, Adam. We're so stupid. Because it's Adam. And then Eve, of course, is what refills your plasmids. Of course, on the front of everything else behind the scenes of it was not so peaceful. with how things were run and how people disagreed with what they should have. Of course, leading to this war between Andrew Riding and Atlas. Well, mainly it was between Andrew Riding and Fontaine for the longest time, but then all of a sudden Fontaine just blew up somewhere, and then Atlas took on the revolution from that point. But of course, the citizens of Rapture became addicted to Adam, and they needed it, and they will kill and fight anyone to get that way. And of course, the splicers, they start out as these generic goons with melee weapons to come at you, eventually learning to shoot with guns, and then they get these genetic abilities from them. So we get the spider slicers, we get those Houdini splicers, which are some of my favorites in the entire game. Well, they'll just start hurting you, and then all of a sudden you're trying to fight back, and they disappear, and you're like, ooh, spicy. But of course, they're just cannon fodder in the game. They're just there to be bad guys for this telling plot. And then you get your mini bosses and some of the more deeper intellectual drives into BioShock, known as the Big Daddy, the staple of the game, the cover boy on there, with, of course, a side objective, as I like to call it, the little sister, and how deeply fucked that whole thing is too. Little sisters, they were just orphaned girls that they would take, any orphaned girls, and they would just set them up for this program, the Little Sister program. But then it eventually led to, oh, hey, we're just going to kidnap girls and make them little sisters. And that's fucked. But of course, Little Sisters were the ones that could smell Adam off of corpses, and they would use their little syringes and pull them out and get the Adam.
I will say it's specifically with them, but in general, the sound design of them, and like when you're walking through an area and it's not, in my opinion, it's never chilling when you're walking and you hear the footsteps, because at that point you're like, oh shit, a Big Daddy's around. It's when, I think what's more terrifying is when you're walking and then all you hear is and you're just like, oh my god. Like, I think hearing her before Big Daddy is more terrifying, because then because you don't hear him and you're like, oh god. And your spine just, you're like, oh my gosh, there's a Big Daddy. You're like terrified, and just hearing because it's the same sound that when you're injecting yourself with more Eve to replenish, and it's so well done. It's so well done.
Each of the areas in the game as well, I think, are well put together. Yes,
and unique.
Yeah, of course, a lot of the time you will be staring out into the city of Rapture, looking through and looking at underwater, and like, okay, this is cool to look at. But one of my favorite areas of all time is Arcadia. I think Arcadia is fantastic. It's a date level design of, oh, hey, Andrew Ryan is shutting off the oxygen to the entire state of Rapture. We need you to go, like, make a genetic tree right now. And that's fascinating, running around and retracing your steps, trying to find a secondary, like, building mechanic, which they do throughout the game, which I thought was fascinating. Of course, the vending machines. Welcome to the circus of value. Such a fun little jingle, fun little extra, voiced by Ken Levine, of course. We're bidding your ammunition, and med kits and things like that. I love the fact that alcohol in this game, when you get it refills your Eve, but it takes away your health, and then vice
Cigarettes
versa.
Too.
Cigarette will give you back health, but take away your Eve. Oh no, okay, yeah. Cigarettes were the one that takes away your health but gives you back Eve, and then alcohol is the one that gives you back health but takes away your Eve. I find that really clever and interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, if you drink too much, the combat becomes a lot more fun.
I can't believe, what's one thing that I can't believe you haven't brought up? one of the most iconic weapons. The
What the
wrench.
Oh, the wrench.
Just the wrench. Right now, all I see in my head is the first person view, and it's you
holding it in
and
your
then
hand.
and then he goes like this, and then you walk around with it. I could just see it in my head.
The wrench is a staple for that. I mean,
and
that's
the
why.
sound that it makes, God, it is so brutal.
I mean, there's those moments where in the game that you just lose all your weapons except for your plasmids, of course, and your wrench. And you have to make do with just your wrench, so it's a lot more fun. A lot of people like to make wrench only playthroughs, of course, which I find fascinating. All the different weapons in this game were very cool. You start out with the pistol and the wrench, and then you get the machine gun, and then you get the shotgun, and then you get the rocket launcher, and then you get the flamethrower, and then you get the crossbow, and you're like, oh wow, each one of these has unique design. Of course, you go up to the power for the people. There's only a certain number of them in the game, but you can upgrade your weapons to how it sees fit, whether it's installing better ammo counts, or hey, firepower, or for the rocket launcher's case, not damaging you when you use it, so you can just shoot it at your feet in front of enemies and they all blow up, but you're fine. It's so cool, these different abilities. The crossbow was so cool, given to you by one of the most interesting characters of all time, Mr. Sander Cohen, in one of the most unique levels of all time.
And honestly, as a kid, it reminded me of like the Condemned games, when there was the part when you go into like that little, like, it kind of feels like a mall or something, right? Where you go in and you go into like the rooms where it's like all white and it's all those figures, and one of them is a guy and none of them are. Then you leave, then you come back and they're all there again, and you're like, oh, what? And you're like, what the fuck? And then you get close to it, and like the moment you realize it's a human, it jumps at you. You're like, fuck. That shit scared me as a kid.
Well, because it's just such a detour from the entirety of the game, where
this game goes. I was gonna say real quick, because I was gonna say that that was such a great point. This game has moments where it kind of like the story just stops, but it's not against the story. Like, it doesn't feel like you're like, okay, why did we just do, like, it all works in the story, which is wonderful.
One thing that I like, it's not the best thing in the game, and it definitely got improved on, is the hacking minigame.
Oh, Jesus. I was going to say that as a joke, and then you actually were serious.
I genuinely think it's so silly and goofy that you just have these pipes. It's the weirdest gameplay mechanic in the entirety of the game.
I will say, to like Half-Life 2 was a good example of this too. If you're going to do a game where your protagonist is silent, and I think this game, like Half-Life 2, is the perfect example of the happy medium of where video games are. It is a video game. There are levels. There's levels. There's upgrades. There's good combat. But it's not like a Telltale game where it's a story game, which I'm not saying Telltale's bad. It's just the evening out. It's just enough of this is a amazing, interesting world. But then, like you said, there's kind of some goofy shit that's like a video game, and you're like, oh, it's a video game. It's okay. It's okay. So I agree. Like, it's, again, that perfect balance of like, it knows when to be a video game, and it knows when to be, and it doesn't feel like they don't clash. Like, you're not, like, obviously you brought up the joke of like the rocket launcher thing, but it never feels like you're going around and it's like your gameplay and the video gamey stuff doesn't fit the sophistication of the story. I think maybe the level where you disguise yourself as a Big Daddy, that's maybe the one time where I'm like, okay, this kind of doesn't fit that well.
But escort, and it's a little bit.
It's an escort mission,
and of course, you're there from the story, and of course, BioShock has one of the most twists out of nowhere that you're just like, holy fuck, that was in front of me the entire time. And then that's that one twist that I choose and refuse to not talk about and want it for people to experience. I talk about spoilers on games of all the time throughout the years, especially these earlier games. This is one where if you've never played it, I say don't look into it.
And you want to know what's crazy though is the spoiler happens, then it's the certain moment, and then it's like the reveal of what the reveal was. It's like it's a 3-act spoiler in the course of like 10 minutes. Like you get the spoiler, the twist, then it's like one of the greatest speeches in a video game.
It's literally an insane speech.
And then it ends with you already knowing all this, and then the way it's like you start like, yeah,
you're like, maybe he's lying or something like that. And then
wait a minute, what? And then you're just like, it is brilliant.
No, yeah, this game has some of the best written structures for characters out there. Andrew Ryan being one of the most fascinating characters ever written. And I feel that not that when he leaves that the game suffers, because it doesn't. It's just that you do miss him a little bit.
I think Tenenbaum though is like,
well, Tenenbaum definitely, makes the game work towards the end because again, the whole objective of, okay, we need to fix me. I'm a problem. But don't need to go into what that problem is. I will say this. We keep talking about those moments where the game reminds you it's a video game. This game didn't need a final boss, but we had one anyway.
Yeah, the ending, and I will say, yes, I know this is lazy of me. I don't care about the hacking thing. There are a couple other goofy things. I think the ending is the moment where I'm like, this kind of fucks anything and everything I had, because that ending is so not ending. Kind of, I think a lot of people over the years have been like, the ending is not good, but it's not really the ending that's the problem. It's the before part, because the ending is kind of like, okay, this isn't great. It's more of the part before it, like you said, is like the, oh, this just does not, like, that's when it feels like a game, but in a like, we were doing so good, and then this is where, which the second one didn't do that. The second one just was that bum rush of people that you have to survive.
And openly admittedly, Ken Levine has said that, like, hey, if I had the choice, I wouldn't have put a boss at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, hey, that makes sense. Like, I feel like a civil talk encounter, like you had previously, would have worked much better for it. But of course, you don't want to do that 2 times in a row. And of course, your AAA studios are like, no, we need to have a boss at the end of our game. Thanks, Take-Two. Or 2K, excuse me. It came out at this time where games were fully becoming that discussion of, are video games art? And BioShock set the staple of, oh, hey, there is an argument to be had here on if video games are art or not. And of course, it continued that discussion later down the line with its sequel, BioShock Infinite. But we're not talking about that today. We're just talking about BioShock 1. I think, of course, with the love that it's been getting over the last, over a decade now, it's got its 16th anniversary this year. Can you think about that, Brian? 16.
Crazy.
My
God. Drive.
It could drive. it could drive into the bottom of the ocean, I guess. I just love BioShock. I normally try it is because we don't rank our games on here. We might do a ranking at the end of this with
that
all
would
of
be
our
pretty
games.
funny. Like every year in order, that'd be cool.
Yeah. But BioShock is like, it's not my favorite game of all time, but it is like in my top. It's either in my top 3. It's definitely in my top 5 though. Out of all the games I've ever played, BioShock it's something. It's changed my life. I don't talk about it as much as like other games. Like I don't talk about it as much as my favorite game of all time. I love talking about my favorite game of time. And I brought up the fact that Mass Effect was my runner-up. I talk about Mass Effect a lot more than I do BioShock, but it's hard to talk about something that's been talked about to death too, especially.
And I don't feel like this is a game like the joke when you go around to people is Luke. Oh no, I am your father.
Come on,
And
get the line.
obviously, video games are video games. Like they're obviously not the biggest franchise of all time, but like in a gaming circle, you don't really hear people because I think like you, I think a lot of people are kind of like, in my opinion, if I told you, like if we came out what the spoiler is, I don't even think it would really hit in a way because it's not really what the spoiler is. It's the context and the way that every beat unravels where it's that visceral reaction.
All your decisions, all the story beats that have been happening up to this point, and you're not even thinking about it. And then it just happens and it's been staring at you in the face the entire BioShock is the game. It's one of those games that I'm like, this is the game that you don't talk about, you play and then you discuss afterwards with someone that's played it as well.
Yeah.
Which is why I love talking with you about it, because we could talk about that whole sequence for like an hour for real.
And you know what? Even though I think the ending derails it, it doesn't derail it enough to where I think that whole thing is like greater than how bad. Like my love of it is like that. I get this. I kind of don't care that the ending sucks ass. Again, but this part is great.
I talk about how there's problems with this game, and again, I keep saying this is like one of my favorite games of all time, like up there. And I don't care that the pipe mini game is silly. I don't care that there's a final boss that really doesn't make any sense. I don't care that the photography mini game can suck my.
Yeah, I forgot about that too.
Because you're like, you'll get the perfect shot, and then I'll be like, you got to see. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? There is nothing else like it. Like, as much, again, we keep going back to System Shock, as a spiritual successor.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing like System Shock in a sense.
No.
And of course it's this utopia world thing, but like, how many games have utopia world things?
Well, I will say this. He started in space. He's like, okay, we're going to go underwater. And then he's like, okay, now we got to go to the sky. So then I'm assuming Judas just takes place on the ground. So then after that, where does he go? He needs to find, like, where's the middle ground? Like a skyscraper? I don't know.
Yeah, after that will be the skyscraper. And then after that,
he's going to go to heaven and hell.
I was thinking the Earth's core.
Or that too.
I mean, hey, religious themes, of course, I think we'll tail end on BioShock. It's just one of those games that you don't see much of anymore, and you don't get like that anymore. I'll say this for sure, like, because this was our era. 2006 was the start of it in a sense.
Yeah.
Little bit, but 2007 was like the year that we were like, okay, we appreciate video games. We understand what they're coming from. So, starting this year and continuing onwards, we're going to be talking like nuts about our games, and BioShock is definitely a great place to start talking about going in detail and things like that.
Yeah.
And this discussion of BioShock was like the length of like an entire one of our podcasts so far.
That is true.
About 20 to 30 minutes. This was like a 20-minute talk about BioShock.
So you brought up something very interesting. So obviously, as we all know, that is my runner-up. So you brought up how this isn't your game of the year, or game of all time.
My favorite game of all time.
This is my favorite game of all time. Alert! There's gonna be edits.
He's
okay. Let's just hold on. We gotta do a timeout though, real quick. Let's go. BioShock, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, Portal, Super Mario Galaxy, Team Fortress 2, Crysis, Assassin's Creed, Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, the first Rock Band, the first Mass Effect, God of War 2, The Witcher, the Orange Box, which goes back to Team Fortress 2 and Portal, and Half-Life 2 Episode 2, Peggle, the first fucking Peggle came out this year. What else? The B-movie game. The B-movie game. I don't know. I don't know what else. Okay.
It was a stacked year, is what we're saying.
It was a stacked year. So
games suck compared to Brian's.
I'm gonna just say this. It's Halo 3. Whatever. I'm gonna probably talk a while about this game still, but I am a simper, but hey, you were talking about how you love Kingdom Hearts and how you think Kingdom Hearts is trash too. That's me with Halo, okay? I love it, and it's also garbage.
This is the peak for Halo.
This is the peak for Halo. I feel like Reach. Reach I'll give, but I will say, if you go to my solo channel BK, I'll link it in the description. The homie and I, Matt, we did a rank of all the Halo games, the mainline ones. And I talk about Halo 3 being my favorite Halo game, and it's my favorite game of all time. So if I forget to say anything,
watch that video now.
Yeah. So and 2007 Game of the Year cast is over. No. So Erik brought up, again, I think this is going to be the most like meta childhood episode for me, at least. So first off, I'm breaking it now. Halo 1 and now Halo 3. But I already talked about Zelda. Whatever. Anyways.
Doesn't matter now.
So, okay. I'm going to bring up an analogy. When I used to like this person. When Kanye West...
Oh, God.
Before he watched 21 Jump Street and liked Jewish people again. When... I'm not going to be able to get through this. Before My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy came out, if you are a fan of that album or like a fan of hip-hop music, whatever, that entire era of like the lead up to that album, the live performances to the album dropping, it was like top tier marketing, execution, promotion, and it was like, even if you weren't into his music, you could get an idea of like what was going on with him because it was a feeling. In my opinion, Halo 3 is bar none one of those top moments. Because Halo 3, even if you did not even fucking care about Halo, you knew Halo 3 was coming out because it was this, from the Crackdown beta, the beta being on Crackdown, that's why everyone bought that fucking game, to every trailer for this game, video game wise, like gaming trailer and like artistic, like real life trailers, in my opinion, are the greatest video game commercials of all time. The one where the kids are looking up at the sky and it cuts to him fighting. The original E3 reveal where he comes walking out of the dust and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the Believe trailer, which in my opinion is the greatest video game promotion of all time, where it's the statuettes and the piano. I honestly get I get choked up at the end of it every time.
And that you can get aroused without being sexually attracted to something.
Exactly. And then I remember getting the game, and I don't have it here because it's still on my fucking door at my parents' house. But getting a Fatheads, remember Fatheads? I think they're still a thing. But I had a Master Chief Fathead that technically was said I should only have it on my wall for like 2 years. It has been on my wall or on that door for, let's see, 2023 to 16 years now.
Did this math, Brian.
This game to me, I guess when I talked about it on the Rankum, I talked more about like detailed stuff. I'm just going to pour my heart out this time. Like, not even trying to be, you already made the simp joke, which is fine. No bullshit. This game saved me and like really changed my life. Like, I met so many people. Like, I met a huge group of people that I used to play Halo 3 with all the time. And we would play for hours and hours every single night. And this is like one of those moments where, like, it's always the jokes about, like, you just sit and you play video games all the time. This is really the one game that made me that person. Like, I was always playing custom games, playing matchmaking, Team SWAT, come at me, campaign. And then like with the Forge mode and theater mode, again, a lot of Halo was always revolutionary for console gamers. It brought so much to console gaming that we see watermarks for in any genre of game. Like they are Halo 3, and again, this is also when Halo 3 was the pinnacle of entertainment before. Anyways, that legit hurts my heart thinking about, so we're not going to go down that dark road. But Halo 3 was you saw news things of people are calling into work and calling sick into school because they're out at midnight going to get Halo 3. Like, your parents knew about Halo 3, your grandparents knew about Halo 3. Halo 3 was just that moment in pop culture at the time. And I just remember my dad making a joke when we bought it at Circuit City. Again, that makes me old. And the guy and I were talking to my dad, and we were like, no, this is the last one. And my dad's like, yeah, okay. If it makes money, they're just going to make more. My dumbass fucking 13-year-old self, 12, 13-year-old self.
Yeah, the fight, Brian. Now do it again. That's a Scott.
Finish the fight again. ... Again. This game looked incredible. All the new additions were incredible. The story was incredible. Yes, Cortana was kind of a lackluster mission. I get it. I know. I just shit on the ending of BioShock. I can crap all over the Cortana mission, but it's okay. It's okay. Because I think this is the best Marty O'Donnell score in any of the Halo games. I think just the thing that I said in the Rankum was I loved how in the first Halo game, the levels were simple. The second game, there was a lot of diversity. In this, it was simple, 10 levels, but each level was so memorable and perfect, and it gave you different things to do. And again, just like with Gears of War, I think the set pieces are great. More than Gears of War 2 as well. Like, this game was like emotional, and the storyline was great, and I just felt like the way they kind of weaved all the obnoxious stuff from Halo 2 with the simplicity of Halo 1, I think was really well done. This was one of those games that, like, I just remember being like, I want to get all the skulls. I remember all the Easter eggs. I remember, like, anything about this game. I have the fucking Legendary Edition of this game with the Master Chief helmet. This game is oh my god. I legit am starting to get I'm legit simping now. Like,
them.
Dude, this game, like, genuinely, this game is so fucking important to me. And like we were joking about like Kingdom Hearts and stuff. And like this is my favorite franchise. As much as I am sad with it now and I get frustrated, Halo is just so important to me. And I think a lot of it is just it was that franchise that is mine. Like everyone kind of has like their this is what I love, this franchise is what I love. Halo was like my thing, and it was always the thing of like I felt like I just felt like Halo was just that weird franchise that people either just thought was like, oh, you like Halo, or it got to a point where it wasn't cool to like Halo anymore or whatever. And this game is just like I just can think about every moment that I played this game in a fun way, in a story way, and in a competitive way. Like I think this is the most time I've ever played a game. Like I spent so much of my life playing it, and like when all the multiplayer maps would come out, like that was also a first thing where like we're getting Xbox Live for the first time, so I was able to buy all the map packs and do all the goofy shit on there, and just it was
buying map packs.
Those were the days.
Put things in the game for free now.
Like, or their whole thing is, hey, we're gonna put all of the maps on the disc. We're gonna give you 40% of them, and then we're gonna say we're working on new ones, and then you have to pay $20 for the ones that are already on the disc, which is like acidine.
That was ridiculous. Crazy. I used to do that where so much data was on the disc and that was being sold separately. I remember those days. Not on disc anymore.
I'm like speechless. Like I said, this is how I ended up getting when I was talking about it on the Rankum. I'm just like, and it's funny in the Rankum, my comparison was like, when you watch the Oscars and there's a film that's nominated for Best Foreign Film in Best Picture, and you're like, well, I wonder what's going to win Best Foreign Film. It's the same thing. I'm like, there's no question. Halo 3 is my favorite game, so of course it's my favorite Halo game, not Halo Spartan Assault or whatever. The top-down one.
Halo Wars 2.
Halo Wars 2, yeah. No, man. Obviously, I'm actually kind of happy that I've already talked about it because I feel like it's one of those, I'm hearing a voice in my head like, Brian, you've already ranted about it. You don't have to say every single thing again. But I would do that. But all I know is, like, Erik knows, like, he knows. Like, this is not even, like, a joke of, like, I love this game. Like, he knows. Because I got him into, like, trying to play Halo 3 with me, too. Halo 3 was one of those games where I'm like, if you knew me, you'd play Halo 3. We could play anything else, but you would fucking play Halo 3 with me. We'd play Predators, where, like, it was the map where the guy would be invisible and all of you had to hang out and you had to kill the invisible guy. It was so fucking fun. And Foundry, right? In, like, that warehouse level. Oh, my God. Chef's kiss. And I made my own map, and I always made people play it, and they loved it, and they're like, this is so cool.
You're so talented. You should be in game design.
I wish I had my glasses on so I could push them down. All jokes aside, this is... I'm very excited once we get to Erik's point with this, where he gets a fun edit, too.
Wait. I'm throwing this on the spot for you, Brian. Now it's time for my opinion on your favorite game of the year. I've played Halo 3, and I don't see where Brian's eye comes from, but hey, it happens, I do think that, I don't go to Halo games for the plot, really. I know Master Chief, I know the Arbiter, I know Cortana, I know the Covenant. Don't ask me what happens
I will say though, before 343, even though I agree with you, it wasn't like a Gears of War situation. Or no, I don't even think Gears of War was bad like that. It was definitely if you felt like you wanted to get into the lore and the plot, it was not bad, but it definitely worked as I'm Master Chief. I'm unbeatable. And then Johnson would be like, let this motherfucker kill people.
The multiplayer was definitely the highlight of the series, in my opinion. I definitely will agree that 3's multiplayer was top tier. I will say
I think, and like we were talking about the single player games, like Call of Duty 4, like again, this wasn't a time where before it kind of became what it is, which I think it definitely became a different kind of beast than Halo. Halo just kind of, they were like, whatever. Call of Duty just became, it's just the same thing. Mm-hmm. Call of Duty multiplayer, like this, we were playing like Erik. I know Erik. I mean, I'm kind of like him too. He's not a big multiplayer game guy, besides Dead by Daylight, which he complains about.
Well, I don't play that.
But this is when like we were genuinely like we would play any game multiplayer, even if we weren't into games like that, because it's like the multiplayer back then just had such a fun feeling to it.
Yeah, I do think that Halo 3's multiplayer was so just a fun riot, especially when you're with friends. Mm-hmm. I just, maybe it was because I never got into Halo like Brian did. I didn't get into it that time, so I wasn't like excited to finish the fight. But
and even like at that point, like I said, I think a lot of it is just my personal attachment to it, with like kind of a lot of stuff that was happening, like when I started getting to know all these people online, and then like I said, I think Halo 3 is just kind of the amalgamation of it's the game, it's my personal attachment to it, and then it's the fact that, again, the ad campaign for this game was fucking spectacular. Like it's unmatched. And I think a lot of games were like that back in the day, but you don't see that anymore. I don't really think you get great gaming advertisements like that anymore. Like,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm trying to think of most recent game to come out. Most recent game to come out from this podcast, was Resident Evil 4. And I felt that the advertisement where that game was, we're remaking Resident Evil 4. That's about it.
I don't know, because I'm trying to be objective of like, what are even games that maybe because like I feel like Call of Duty never really had, lately it's just the actors who are in them because they get big A-list actors lately.
Yeah, Kevin Spacey.
I don't know.
I feel like, nowadays it's okay. I'm looking up like the gameplay of a game. I want to know that. Ads don't mean much because I'm more focused on, let me see the game in action, which I do think is the right way to go about trying to get a
Rockstar. I think Rockstar is probably the best, in my opinion, still, because they do like those trailers where Rockstar pops up and then it shows like, it's like the cut of like, they show cutscenes with the gameplay, and it's like that minute, because like I remember when we would see like the GTA 5 trailer and the Red Dead, like those are pretty solid, but again, those aren't like the Halo games. Their commercials were fucking art. Like they were like, we're gonna make really well done commercials. So much so that Neil Blomkamp did one, and then he was going to do a Halo movie, and then that just turned to District 9. But you know what? It comes full circle because he's doing Gran Turismo.
Yeah, he said, I'm going to do the competitors because they wouldn't let me work on the Halo series at Paramount Plus, which we all know is fantastic.
So, on that happy turn to depressing note, 2007. We list a lot of games, and I swear to God, You better not name. You know what I saw that was on there? The first Darkness game too. That came out in 2007. That's an underrated gem.
Yeah, both are.
Let us know. As you can clearly tell, 2007 was our fun year. We had a lot of fun. There was a lot of great games.
That year the sucked, but video games were great.
I think Erik. Okay, well maybe he has to tell. I'm trying to think. Maybe he has to tell me this off camera. Like I was just skip. And as you can tell right now, we're waiting, and every year that goes by, we're gonna see when Erik's favorite game of all time comes up.
Yeah, my edits. You're gonna have some time. Toodaloo.
Toodaloo.